Alright.
Hey guys.
Hi, Jack here.
Rob. This is the... Oh, geez, we do have a bit of sun today, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
It's like straight in our eyes.
Straighten our eyes, but I'm
Well,
going to
we'll push
squeeze.
through. You're going to squeeze. I'm going to just go straight open. I'll get used to it.
I'll try to.
This is the final 2-hour
Yeah.
finale and a bit of reunion wrap up. So we'll see how this goes. We might split this episode into 2 parts.
Yep. Depending on how big it is.
Yeah, depending on how big it was. So last week we did say we didn't really have much of a bet, but we did think Brad and Troy's end would get to the end, and he wouldn't take Sarah. He'd take one of the other two. But we really wanted the showdown.
Yeah, we did, and we got
the showdown. We did.
It's very rare in Survivor to actually get the showdown.
Yeah, or like as much of a showdown as like usually you get your one player who just will not get a vote, and you get that. But you get your 2 players who kind of do have a case that one, but not as strong as each other this time around. This time around, they really had some strong cases.
This was like, it's very rare to see the 2, what I would class as the 2 strongest players of the season go head to head in the final trial.
Yeah, usually one of them will outdo the other, and
Exactly.
you've got a second tier player popping in there.
Like last season, remember when David did and Zeke had their face off?
If those 2 got to the ends together,
that would have been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
Ty decides to tell Brad that he's got 2 idols.
Now, we know that's what he's going to do. You know, sooner or later, Ty's going to be beaten by his own paranoia.
I know.
And whatnot. And I'm not really sure.
That's an insane decision, though. I mean,
but did he have any other decisions? Like, as Ty?
Well, he could. Because this is the thing. Ty ends up breaking down the camera. Now, let's put this in context, right? He's made it to 6, and he's got 2 idols. You tell me another Survivor player who'd be crying about that.
Yeah.
I would be sitting there going,
Yeah, okay, I've definitely made it to 4.
I've made it to 4. All I have to do now is play one now, play one next time. I'm in the 4, right? He doesn't have to make a deal with Brad.
Doesn't have to do anything, really.
No, that's what I mean. He's crying about Brad and all this, right? All he has to do is sit there and go, okay, I can't make a deal with Brad. Let's try Aubrey, make a deal or not, right? Doesn't matter. Okay, let the chips fall where they will.
Yeah, because I'm getting through.
Yeah, I'm
Doesn't
getting
matter.
through. Let them vote for whoever they want to.
Yeah.
But no, he's cracking up because he can't get in a line. He's got 2 idols at 6 and he's moaning.
Your alliance is your 2 little idols around your neck. You don't need anyone else, do you? You've got your alliance.
But he's crying.
2 inanimate objects that are going to get you through.
You know, if you went on Survivor and you had 2 idols at 6, you'd be dancing to the camera.
I know, and I would definitely not need to
4.
tell anyone about it. It'd just be weird.
And this is how bad a player Ty is. He even knows that they're going to vote for Aubrey, right?
Yeah.
And instead of using that knowledge, he just decides to crack up and then,
And then go to Aubrey.
Well, Aubrey comes to him.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right? And then Saree comes to him. Culpepper wins immunity for the second time in a row.
Yeah.
Right?
This is the only thing I think, when Aubrey did want to get rid of Culpepper a while ago. She's like, we got to get rid of Brad. Brad's a big physical threat. It did come,
But these weren't physical. I know I'm going to jump ahead here, but one of the really interesting things about Culpepper here is Aubrey called it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Brad showed for all these immunity challenges, just showed incredible mental toughness.
Yeah, because a lot of them were some tough puzzles.
The ability to focus, the ball one for the last one.
The ball one.
That is just pure concentration.
And he destroyed
it. Now Ty is usually very good at these concentration type of challenges. He got nowhere near Brad. Nobody got near Brad.
No
Brad
one
was just he was just focused.
Yeah, no one else got a ball in.
No one. I was like, this is unbelievable watching him.
Yeah, it was crazy. But he did have the physical sides, but it always backed it up with a puzzle. We had the tower puzzle.
Yes.
We had, which then the number combination to get the top of the piece, he just seemed to get that really, really quickly.
He got that. He got it on the first go, I think.
First go that we saw, the numbers, they can usually, that late in the game, can start to really mess with you.
Exactly. And the physical side of the challenges weren't that physical, running through the maze.
Yeah, there was only really up a couple of rope ladders and down a couple of rope ladders.
That's right. I'm not going to say that that's easy when your body's in deprivation, but what I mean is there wasn't anything incredibly physical. Like I remember one last thing where they had to run through the jungle to get the puzzle pieces to bring back. And that was like incredible.
And that was a big run. That
was a really tough one. Aubrey's picked it right, but for the wrong reason. He's a big physical friend. The physicality helps a little.
Yeah.
But if it comes to a puzzle, it's really your mind.
Yeah, and he seemed to dominate all those puzzles.
He dominated them all, and they were all puzzles.
Yeah, and the compass one seemed like a really...
Oh!
And he's still got a piece in the bag.
bag.
And but that seemed like a really tough puzzle. So like,
I looked at it, when I was looking at it, they're little bits that you have to make in the show. It was really tough puzzle. So we've come down to 6 people. Brad wins the immunity, which I didn't really mind whether. What I didn't want was I didn't want Sarah, Ty, or Troyzen to win the immunity on this one.
Okay, yeah.
Simply because I know they're all carrying effectively an item.
Yeah.
Right? So I wanted Aubrey, Brad, or Sari to win.
So, yeah.
And Brad won.
Brad won.
So he's gone to the council with 6 people with him.
Come on, Brad. Block this sun for us. It's
please. Which leaves, of course, we know Sarah's has to play her.
Yeah, well, she doesn't have to. Like she said, she can have it as a.
Oh, she could have given it. I don't know if she can will it to somebody else.
No, but she could have kept it to herself and said, "Oh, this is a souvenir." But she's like, "I don't need a souvenir tonight. I just would rather be safe."
I wouldn't be keeping it for a souvenir.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I think she got the best souvenir in the end, anyway, didn't she?
Well, when I added the votes up at the end, and she was quite right to play it. We got Sarah and Brad with basically immunity. Then Ty does what Ty does.
Mm.
When Ty played his first 2 immunities, like the 2, I was really surprised that he played 2.
It's an odd. What is it? Is it because Brad threatened him and he's
I think so. I actually think that
no
Brad
one threatens me. I'll do what I want to do.
I think actually Brad exposed the look. I think Ty's a weak player because he doesn't think about the game. But I think Brad has actually found an emotional handle on Ty that nobody else has, and that's this: if you push Ty and push him hard, as Brad was doing, Ty falls to pieces.
Yeah.
He doesn't think very well prior to that, but after that, he wasn't thinking at all.
No.
At all. He had no game at all. And Brad's really messed his game.
And he did say that. He said, I'm here to manipulate Ty.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of his words at one point. I tried to manipulate him.
And he did a great job because he actually, when you think about it, he managed to get Ty to play 2 idols in the one...
Yeah.
In the one tribal.
He's like, I want to keep one and I want to flush the other one.
Yeah.
Well, he flushed both of them.
He flushed both of them in one go. I thought that was brilliant play on Brad's part. Because if Ty had played the way I thought he was going to play, which is, I'll play one now, I'll play one next time.
So I would have played.
I'm in the 4, right? It really would have changed Brad's game. But Brad just saw 2 idols disappear in one go. And he was sitting there going, great.
Yeah.
That's just the best
outcome.
Well,
he didn't just see 2, he saw 3.
Well, what I mean is, though, to see Ty give up both idols in one go, for him was just gold.
Yeah, of course.
I was interested, though, how Brad got to choose to take somebody with him.
Yeah.
And he chose
Troyzen, of course.
I was really surprised he chose Sarah.
And I think this is where you see him make that distinction of, Ty's done me wrong.
Yeah.
I think Sarah, I can take on Sarah. Again, this is where the one fault in Brad's overall game came out was his inability to shut that down, to shut the fact that it's to take the element of personal feelings out of it. As Ty's just lied to me. He's kept screwing me over.
Yeah, look, I got to agree with you there.
And then it's and he picked Sarah's side, and that was I thought, well, I wonder if he's taking Sarah to kind of, because I thought, in my way to take Sarah is keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
Yes.
Let's bring Sarah on board, make sure she's safe, and then cut her throat.
Yes.
Because she's my biggest competition. She's the one playing the hardest. She's done. Yeah. She has the best resume out there. That's out in the open that everyone can see.
But I think the other side of it is just not. I agree with you about the Ty, him not being able to take the personality out of there, and that was one of his flaws, I think, right? And in the end, it cost him. But I think the other side is Brad's a real competitor, and I really like his attitude. And one of the things I'd like to say is I don't think he was actually considering Sarah to be that much of a threat. Even if she was a threat, he thought he could beat her at the
he
tribal.
thought he could beat anyone.
And I think that's the other reason he took her is because
I also think genuinely he thought he could beat her, but I think he thought he could beat her for the wrong reasons. I think he thought he could beat her because she's upset people, I haven't. And Brad, but that's the thing. It's like this is what we get a little bit confused at the end. It's like, well, they've upset everyone. You haven't upset anyone because you're on the bottom.
Yeah.
You can't really upset anyone on the bottom. When you're calling the shots, people are going to get hurt.
If you want to have a resume at tribal, you're going to have to hurt some people. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, you just haven't played the game. Now, look at Troyson. He had that resume. He had the
exact opposite resume.
I didn't put any of you on the tribal, right? And I think one of them, I forget who it was, but I think it might have been Andrew or Michaela said to Troyson, yes, but what did you do?
Yeah.
Like, what vote did you organise?
Yeah.
And Troyson was like, I was part of the votes, but that's the best he could say. He couldn't actually sit there and say, I got out Sierra. I got off. I got out, Aussie or anything. He couldn't call a name.
I don't know why, but they tried to put Troyzan in that same category as Sandra at the end there. It's like, well, as long as it's not me. Well, that's really...
Look, the problem that Troyzan had with that Sandra comparison was this. Yes, that's one half of Sandra's game, as long as it's not me. The other half is she's picking who's going home.
Yeah, and she's also making sure there's other elements to it.
If you have any doubt about that, go and have a look at how she got rid of JT.
Yeah.
He had an idol, and he knew he was in trouble. He still didn't play it. That's how well she's done a good job on it.
Like as long as it's not me, as long as you can also manipulate others.
Absolutely.
Whereas, Troyzan wasn't able to do anything.
Nothing like that.
But
I was also we're getting ahead to the final tribals, so maybe we should
back up the Surrey, the explosion of idols.
Okay, the idol explosion.
And this can't upset me.
Well, no, wait, because you lost Surrey.
No. I don't mind the fact that we saw this one off and Surrey went. I'm okay for Surrey to go, and she went out like.
Oh, she went out in a fantastic
way. I legitimately and still do believe without that she has a good chance. She was a very good chance for the mill. Like, I think...
Let's put it this way, out of Aubrey and Ty, she was the next one up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She was third in the rank.
Third in the rank. But after Sarah and Brad, and it was Surrey.
I just think Surrey also has a bit more social game to be able to bring in some votes in the final count.
The problem that Surrey would have had though at the end would have been Troyzan's problem. Who did you vote for?
I think she could have easily said stuff. I easily think Surrey would have had the ability to go, I was part of this, and this, and we would discuss. But I think she'd word it in a way that puts her positive. And you did actually do something we didn't even see. Whereas Troyzan just like, I was there when you were talking about the votes.
The problem, and this is what I was talking about throughout the season when we had our Andrew and Surrey discussions.
Yeah.
Right? Andrew was one organising the votes, and Surrey wasn't she had half of Sandra's game again, right? She had the as long as it's not me part of the game down, right? What she doesn't have is that organisational ability. And that was what Andrew was doing, and that was what she was a part of. But she couldn't actually claim any scalps at the end.
I reckon she would have worded it in a way. I don't think she would have been able to beat. Definitely wouldn't be able to beat Sarah. I think she could have been able to beat Brad She could have only on talk because I don't think Brad gave a very strong case to himself. To be honest, for someone who's an attorney at law.
We'll get to that. Right in the final trial. Anyway, let's talk about the vote. This historic vote.
Yeah. No vote.
Well, that's right.
There was no vote because that was it. You couldn't.
But this is why there's a lot of if you never watched the show before, you would know this. But for people who watched for a while, this is really a historic vote in this game.
It's never happened before.
Exactly. So we've had people go to the tribal. We've got Brad with immunity, Sarah with a legacy advantage, which effectively gives her an idol.
Yeah.
You got tied with two idols. Right, and you got Troyzan with an idol.
Leaving Surrey the only one without an idol.
Leaving Surrey without any...
and Aubrey.
And Aubrey without any protection, right? But the tribal kicks off like it normally does, is the chatter, right? But this wasn't really very interesting. So it starts really when Ty plays his two idols.
Yeah.
Now, at that stage, he plays both idols. He plays one for himself. He plays one for Aubrey. At that stage, Troyzen has got to start to worry because that's 2 people. That's 3 people with immunity. That's Brad.
And there's now 50-50. You know,
so
50% of your tribe is no longer able to be voted for.
Able to be voted for. So that only leaves 3 names.
And then Sarah pops up.
Sari.
And goes, no.
Yeah, and then Sarah comes out with, I was actually worried there for a second. She was so quiet. I thought she wasn't going to play it. I was like, play the thing, play it.
Yeah.
Anyway, she plays it. Which leaves, like, Troyzen had no choice.
Yeah.
Troyzen had to play.
It's one or the other. It's your Sari.
Because it came then down to 50-50 vote.
Yeah.
Sari or Troyzen.
Yeah.
He had to play it. There was no question. And then we came to the situation where Jeff, first time in Survivor history, said, second time.
When Brandon, when they didn't even go to tribe, like, there's no need to vote. We'll just leave Brandon here and get him picked up, and you all go back to tribe, and we'll just dismantle this set while he gets airlifted out.
Right? They'd gone to vote, but there was no one to actually vote for except Sari.
Yeah, and Sari didn't have a single name drawn for her at all.
No. So, I counted the votes up at the end.
Yeah, who was going home? Because I forget now. Sarah was
going home. So Sarah's played this brilliant game, but honestly, if she hadn't had that legacy advantage,
she was gone.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's like they knew, and that was a perfect time to get her out.
Oh, it was. But what's really interesting about this, Sarah's played such a great game up until that point. Without that legacy advantage, gone.
That's my thing with Andrea's game is like you're out in front, you're a big beacon, and Sarah was becoming more and more of a beacon.
Oh, look.
And so she was definitely, you can only play such like I said. I think we said the last episode. You're only a criminal for so long until you get caught.
Well,
and without that legacy advantage, that was her time was up.
I think it's interesting that they voted for Sarah though.
Biggest threat,
No, this is the other side of the coin though. At that stage, Sarah actually wasn't the biggest threat at 6. The biggest threat was Brad and Troyzen.
Yeah, but Brad is immune, and Troyzen's not a threat.
Well, no, this is the thing though. If you can't get the main guy, take out his henchman.
Yeah, so you don't really split the vote.
No. What I'm saying is like, I'm really surprised Sari, Ty, and Aubrey didn't actually sit there and go, look, we need to get rid of Brad, right? He's really and he was the powerhouse at this point.
Yeah, he became back on top,
right?
Only because of immunities.
And the way he's pushing Ty hard, right? If I was Ty, I would have been going, no, I want Brad.
But Brad also, I just want to stop there. Like, Brad also did that same thing that Aubrey did a few episodes ago, where she said, I've got immunity. I choose. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
And even when he won the final immunity, there was still an option for fire. And that was raised. It didn't go that way because obviously it was never in Sarah's favour.
Listen,
but if Sarah really thought she was going home, it could have been her, she would have probably gone for fire. But that's something we get so caught up. This necklace, the less people are in the game, it means all of a sudden I control the island. No.
Does not. And it means people don't vote for you.
Yeah.
You don't get to control where the vote goes, but
you have a say.
You have a say. You have a bigger say. You definitely
have an influence.
But you don't have the say.
No.
Right.
No. And like I said, if Troy went, then it splits their vote. Because their vote, like Brad's vote is theoretically 2 votes because he's got Troy.
But I'm still surprised they didn't vote Troyzen because if I was Aubrey, Ty, and Sari, I would have been sitting there going, well, we want to get to Brad, so we need him not to win immunity next time, right? But we can damage him now by taking out his biggest supporter, Troyzen. They should have picked Troyzen. It was, again, a bad gameplay to actually... It was right in the end, but it was wrong at the time to vote Sarah.
Yeah, never going to do anything in the end. Like, because it could have easily have been, except for Brad winning everything, but, that's something you can't really stop once that happens.
That's right.
But it could have been those 3 taking out Sarah eventually, Troyzen and Brad, and you've got those.
Well, the thing is, if you think about it like this, Sarah was always a swing voter, and we'll get except for this council of 6. Remember, Sarah's been in the middle all the way to 6 people, right?
And she's been in the middle, like we said. Like it's not. You can. A lot of people get. It's all me. It comes up down. to me.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to you can pick a side, but you still end up at the bottom.
Yeah.
Sarah never actually ended up at the bottom whenever she swung.
I know. It was
She'd
really
swing
well
up to the top and keep swinging up to the top. Whereas most people just swing because it's not, I'm over here now, I've got power. Well, you don't.
A lot of the times you see a swing voter, they do one swing vote and then they're out the next time because people are like, you're out. You're a swinger. Yeah, you're a swinger.
Yeah, you're going to flip on us any time you get.
Sarah started swinging even
up
before merge.
Yeah, you swing
before
up to the
merge,
top.
and she swung all the way down to 6. Except for this vote, Sarah's always been in the middle, so that's why I'm really surprised that they picked the voter, because it still leaves the power group of Brad and Troyzen, right? What I would have been doing is sitting there and thinking, well, I know Sarah will swing, so I would be going for Troyzen. And then if Brad falls next time, it's Brad by himself. If he doesn't get immunity, he's gone. Yeah. You know, so that's the only thing.
Yeah, and you could get rid of Sarah the next time. But
exactly.
Again, all the idols came out, so none of that was ever going to matter. Sari goes home. But the reason I wasn't happy with that, it was, but it just became, okay, I've had a season where I'm just sitting there waiting for these idols. We've got idols hidden. We've got them stashed away. And you know what it was? It was just... Don't want to say that.
We can edit it.
I don't know how
just say it.
It's kind of like, it's almost like premature ejaculation.
Yeah.
It's like, boom! And
on the 6th. On the 6th.
And now the next votes became, where's the excitement?
Well,
I was like, everyone just used all their eggs, just one bang. Here we are.
Yeah.
We've had these, like, I've been wanting some crazy plays. I get one crazy play where I could have had you could have had so many different things going on for a longer period of time.
It's good you've raised this, but I was going to talk about it at the end when we got to the final tribal. And I wanted to talk about how the idols were handled this season overall. Because I think you've actually raised an issue that I was going to touch on at the end. So if you want, we can talk about that now.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, all right. Let's look at Ty. And this is one of the things I want.
They were all defensive idols.
Well, the problem I have with this is Ty had an idol before merge. I think he had it in episode 2.
Yeah.
Right? He plays it for Sierra, then he goes out and gets it again. So he's effectively had that idol
the whole
since
time.
episode 2, pre-merge. Then merge comes. He finds another idol at the merge, right? At 13 people.
Yeah.
At the well, right? So now he's got 2 idols, there's 13 people left. He takes those idols all the way to 6 before he uses them. That's 2 idols that effectively from episode 2 to episode 13 has just been sitting in his backpack.
Yeah, and Troyzen, I think, got his episode 3 or 4.
And
something
again,
early on, and just sat there the whole way through.
And this is, now, and this goes back to something Ty said, you know. Ty said at 6, if I'm going to win, I need to start making moves, which is like just laughable.
Too late, mate.
It's like, but this is why it's actually more laughable. It's because Ty's had 2 idols all the way from one idol all the way from episode 2, and 2 idols all the way from about episode 5, right? And we know what he's like at finding idols, right? He knows, and he knows
That's the thing.
He can play them and go and find them again.
He knows that as soon as he plays it, it's out there again.
It's out there again. So all this way from episode 2 all the way to episode 13, Ty could have been making plays. All the way, every episode. Ty could have been going, okay, they've thrown out Andrew's name. I don't want Andrew to go home. I want Brad to go home. Yep. Play the idol. Bye-bye, Brad. Go get another one. What I mean is, Ty could have been this dynamite player.
Yeah.
All the way through, using idols offensively. Every episode he could, right?
Yeah.
Instead, he has sat on them in his pack from episode 2 all the way to episode 3.
And he used it offensively, to his credit. He used it offensively only because he used it in a way as like, don't bully me, I'll do what I want with my idol.
That's it.
You know, that's all it was.
Defensive. That's defensive.
Yeah, I know, but it's still...
It's not organising a vote around
No, it's not. But
around an idol.
He did play it to save someone who actually wasn't in trouble.
But at this point...
Yeah, wasn't in trouble.
But this is the thing. At 6... When he played those 2 idols, wasn't it just like, anyway?
Yeah, I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, great. I went, all idols have been played. What have I got to look forward to for the next 2
Imagine if he had, say, heard Zeke was going home. Remember in episode 8 or 9?
Yeah, when he was really Zeke, pro Zeke.
Right. Oh, here's an idol for Zeke. And by the way, me and Zeke, we're going to send home you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't think that way, and that's the reason why I think he's such a poor player, because he doesn't think.
But that's like, you know, and the same with like Troy Zane did the same with his idol. He only had one, but it's the same thing. He
did exactly the same thing. He
and
sat
that's why,
on,
like,
sat on,
I was
and
excited. I was really excited going into this episode for these idol plays, and it just became one big.
Let's have a look at Troy Zane's speech to the final tribal, which was basically, "Oh hi, I'm here. I'm really happy to have played. See you later."
Yeah.
Right? That's effectively what it is. How much better would it have been if you had been able to say, "Well, I played my idol at blah blah to get, and then I made blah blah go home." He would have looked a lot better than.
Looked a lot. He would have had one thing,
right.
but he could, you know.
But what I mean is, like, then he could have gone out and looked for the idol again. If he found it again, he could do it again.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, all these people sat on these idols, and when you go to other seasons, when you see people like Tony with an idol,
Well, you just see an idol play
or
that
Kelly
changes the
Wentworth with
game.
an idol, it's not, "Oh, I'm going to keep this safe and I'm going to hold it until I get to, you know, whatever."
Yeah.
They're like, "How can I use this to make sure that I get what I want?"
Yeah.
Right.
And they're a bit more exciting with, like, look, I don't mind an idol played in defense when you actually know it's you.
Oh,
I don't mind, and no one else, and no one has any idea that was coming.
Kelly Wentworth in Second Chances. This is why I like him so,
Yeah, I know,
so much.
You know, I should have got your T-shirt with Kelly Wentworth.
Yeah, actually, you should. But this is why I like. One episode, she actually made sure that she was the vote.
Yeah.
Because she knew she had the idol. And when she knew she was the vote, she actually made people vote for her in that episode,
Yeah.
right? She played it for herself and then sent the person she wanted home.
Exactly. It's such a that's what you can do. If, like, but it just like that's like I was kind of like, meh. You've used all your idols now.
Try, Ty, and this is why I think that Brad did such a great job. He's played an idol for himself, right? He didn't need to.
Yeah.
He's played an idol for Aubrey, who he did need to play it for, right? But they were just like, eh.
Yeah. It was great, a great play on Brad's behalf because he's flushed.
Yeah,
every
exactly.
idol is gone.
That's
but
right.
as a viewer, I'm wanting excitement, and it was groundbreaking, and Sari went home without anyone needing to vote for her and without actually getting a vote because no one, you know, she was the only one that was there. That was not safe. Man, I had so much high hopes for some exciting play, and yeah, it was.
It was. The problem is who had the idols.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
It
wasn't the idols. It wasn't the legacy advantage. It was who had them.
Yeah, they weren't even, like, and we even said the week before. You know,
explosion.
If Thingo want, we did say that, but it was like Ty could theoretically go, "I want this person,
Exactly.
to get rid of someone," but instead he went, "No, I'm playing it because you told me I'm not allowed to play it."
Well, think of it. He's played them defensively. He's played them for Aubrey so she doesn't go home, which is fair enough.
But only so she doesn't. Yeah, but only so she doesn't go home because Brad wanted to go home.
Exactly.
Brad told me I had to vote this way.
And
I'm not going to vote that way, Brad. I'm doing my own thing.
And he voted and he played his own idol for no reason that I can think of except that he felt unsafe. You know, like that his paranoia was ramped up. That's why Brad did such a great job.
Yeah, I think it was really great on Brad's behalf. I just thought as a viewer, I'm just like, oh, great. Now what I've got to look forward to, because now we go to the next tribals. You know, Brad wins back to back, so he just wins it all the way through.
Brad won the last 4 immunities in a row. I mean, that's just fantastic.
Great effort. I love that. Love the challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I actually thought he was going to fail after 6. You know, I thought, okay, he's had his run. You know, he's won 2 in a row.
And then he just kept winning. But, you know,
he just kept doing
it's like he didn't really have... like, you'd think Troy Zane could have put more of a fight up.
Or Sarah.
Who's...
Right.
Yeah, but, you know, no one really... didn't really have much competition. Ty in certain areas, but Ty hasn't... I don't think Ty had a reward challenge. So he's low. He'd be low on energy. Whereas Brad kind of kept winning some extra stuff. Well, Brad kept winning, and the eliminations kind of became nothing, really, in my eyes. Cerie's gone, okay, well, Aubrey goes.
Well,
there's not
there
much.
is a couple of things in the next couple.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So Culpepper wins again. After that, it wins immunity again. Even though Sarah was the name that would have gotten voted out last episode, Sarah's in the middle again.
Yeah.
when there's 5 people left, it's Sarah deciding who's going home, right? You've got Troyzen and Brad on one side, Ty and Aubrey on the other, and Sarah in the middle, right? Sarah's played this middle game. It's amazing.
She's played probably the best middle game, like the swing vote, flipping vote game that I've actually seen. You don't see someone often flip consistently to the top of the tree.
Well, they don't usually last.
Yeah, because that's because they flip because they're in danger. Or but she flipped strategically to keep herself ahead.
And never really upset too many people doing it, which is strange.
And then to get to the final council and they're all upset about it, of course.
Here we are at 5 people. Ty says this to camera and he's one-on-one. He thinks Aubrey's unbeatable. This is at 5 people. Can you imagine saying Aubrey is unbeatable? I'm like, Aubrey hasn't even been in the game for the last 10 episodes.
I know.
Like, who...
She won immunity and then had this big plan and it didn't even work.
But this is time. Aubrey's unbeatable. This is what he says. This is how he's thinking about the game at 5. Aubrey. I'm like, you haven't noticed Brad? You haven't noticed Sarah? Right. But if you don't notice Brad and Sarah by 5, you've got no idea what's going on, right? So anyway, then but this is Ty all over. He's like, Aubrey's unbeatable. I want Aubrey out. Then 2 minutes later, I know it's a cut, right? But you see him talking about getting rid of Troyzen. Yeah. So he's got no idea what he's on about. Like, but this is the thing. He's
2 of the least threatening people.
2 of the least threatening people at all. Culpepper wins again.
Yeah, wins again. Really, really solid.
4 immunities in a row. That's just and at the right time.
I think, like you said, he's he was a pro footballer for his so he does have. I feel like that mental stamina, like the long game. You play, especially those seasons are taxing on the body. So his body probably was. He hasn't done it for quite some time. He's in his 40s or something.
47.
47. But for 47, geez.
When Sarah was at the final tribal, she said, "Well, Brad's a athlete," and Brad says, former athlete.
Yeah, former athlete.
I'm 47 now. But the interesting part is, and I don't think he would have been an athlete without that mental toughness to begin with.
Exactly. Like that's that's in you.
That's in you, right? Yeah. And he's got it in spades.
Yeah, exactly. And that kept him going. And like for 47, he is a fit 40. There's people who are athletes.
He's clearly puts in the effort himself.
Yeah, even outside of past football.
Exactly.
Because a lot of footballers go, "Oh God, thank God, that's over." Like, give me the pizza.
Exactly.
They just put it on the weight.
They put on the weight.
Being so disciplined.
But you have a look at Brad. He clearly he's still working out. He's still doing his physical stuff.
So that mental toughness was always going to get him through. I think Sarah went. Well, I'm pretty sure Ty's going home. I think Sarah felt confident enough to know she was going to make it through.
This was the interesting thing. Ty's come to Sarah as 4 people. Because Brad's won immunity, that means that one of them's going home. It's either Troyzen, Sarah, or Ty. And Ty's quite...
That's one thing,
For once he's actually opened his mouth and some senses come out. He's gone, well, he's definitely taking Troyzen. Right? I mean, it's great that Ty could see that. Right? Yeah. And Sarah's like, yes. And then he's talking to Sarah quite rationally. And look, we'll vote Troyzen. We'll go to final. Because that will increase our chances of making it through to the final. And he's right. If you're the underdog, that's the way you play it, right? There's one problem there, though. Sarah doesn't think she's an underdog.
Yeah, she's still pretty comfortable that she will be going to the final 3.
She's pretty comfortable. Brad and Troyzen are going to take it to the final 3. Yeah. And that's what happens.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Ty goes home, right? And again, this comes back to what you said, Brad definitely sat there and went, Ty's going home. For all the backstabbing, Ty, you're going home. And really, from Sarah's position, there was no difference between Ty and Troyzen. The person she's got to beat is Brad. She doesn't care about who the other guy is.
She's pretty switched on that. She knows there's no one else.
There's no one else.
Yeah, there's no one else.
She only has to beat. So it didn't matter to her whether Ty or Troyzen went home. Yeah. And the fire thing is just the complication.
Yeah.
Just vote Ty. It's an easy vote.
Yeah.
And we'll go to thing over Troyzen. I know I can beat Troyzen. No problem there. Mike target, Brad. Right? Yeah. Nothing I can do about that. If Brad hadn't won that last immunity, I think you would have seen Sarah trying to do... Brad. She probably would have gone to fire, trying to make Brad go home rather than Troyzen. Then we get the mix up in the final tribal, right?
I didn't mind the free flowing debate. I didn't mind that.
I agree with you. it was a change that
because
I'm not unhappy with.
Yeah, I don't mind the actual. Well, what did you? And then the back and forth discussion between them and that. As we were saying, I just would have loved to have seen a more conclusive end to your argument.
I think the problem with it's great having the free flowing, but I found that what happened in the free floating was that the jury tended to dominate the conversation.
Yeah, yes, that was the thing. I don't mind the jury having more of an impact and more say, but not at the expense of losing.
I think I agree with you. I think that they did that. They've got that right, but what they need to do is allow each contestant to actually make a case. Give them a minute at the end or something, and say, okay, now you've each got a minute to make a case.
Yeah.
You've answered the questions of the jury. That's great, and you should be making a case while you do that.
Yeah.
But now you've got a chance to actually get up on your soapbox and tell us what you did, how you did it, and why you think you should win.
Yeah, and they had that, but it just didn't seem like enough. It seemed like Brad was like, yeah, cool, thanks for, I did this. And Sarah did take a bit of a chance and went and did say her little 2 cents, but I still think there could have been more.
Well, I think Brad, for a trial lawyer, didn't do a very good job speaking to the jury.
Yeah, no, I don't want him as my lawyer.
I'm not talking about that, but anyway, I don't think he lacked impact, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think he really impacted on the jury. I think when somebody said, but Sierra was the brains of the organisation, I think he answered that question well. But when Michaela said, well, you said you played a social game, what do you know about me? And he couldn't really give her an answer. Well, he didn't really need to, and that was where he fumbled, because he tried to give her the answers she wanted, whereas he should have given the answer he wanted to give.
Yeah.
But I think where Sarah...
Yeah, it's like, well, I didn't need to get to know you. And that's one of those things. Like, this is where I kind of think it's a funny thing that happens with, once you get voted out, you hate that person. But then they get voted out also, and then you hang out on that, you hang out for that whole, those 3 days until the next tribal comes. You guys actually, you're not playing the game anymore. You get to know each other as humans, and you almost gang up on the final 3.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, Michaela goes back and goes, well, Brad didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
Well, half the others probably didn't until you're sitting on that island as well, Michaela. So it's not Brad's fault per se. It's like there are relationships that build, and you don't have to build a relationship with everyone.
Exactly. Look, and the other thing is, a relationship doesn't revolve around what you know. It's how you act.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know your mum's maiden name.
Yeah, neither do I.
No, but my point is, why would I need to?
No.
To be your friend.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. It's how I act towards you. And that's what I think Brad missed. He could have just sat there and said, I don't need to know your mum's middle name or your brother's birthday. All I had to do is act accordingly with you. And that would have been a great answer, right? Instead, he just held up his hands.
Sorry, I know. I should have probably asked that question. No, you shouldn't have. When are you meant to have done that?
But anyway, Sarah had a similar episode when, I forget who it was who asked, but it was something along the lines of like, look, you played a good social game, you made us all think that you were friends with us, and then you stabbed us in the back. How do you feel about that? And Sarah stumbled for a while, but then she came back with, well, look, it's like being an undercover cop.
Yeah.
When I'm a prostitute, I have to act like a prostitute. When I'm a drug dealer, I have to act like a drug dealer, right?
Yeah.
And that was a great comeback, because it was like, I had to act that way to make sure that I got ahead. And I think that... And that was where I think she won the $1 million, because she could come back against the difficult question.
That was a difficult question. She gave a difficult answer. Yeah, and I think that's a big key there. That you see someone who I don't think she was that much of a villain.
No, she's not a villain.
But then they kind of, like I said, that's when the tribal people on the jury start to gang up, and well, you got me out.
Yeah,
they kind of get this. I've got to get you back. Or like, I don't know where this villainous version of Sarah came from.
Look, Sarah's not a villain at all, right? She's not a Sandra, she's not a Tony, right?
No, she's like for someone like Russell Hands who has made it out of 3 times. The first 2 times he's the anti-Sandra. He's made it to the end. Aside from playing 3 times, they really screwed her over. But the first 2 times when he played, which is like. Actually is, because Sandra's played 3 times, and Sandra probably went out roughly the same time Russell went out on his 3rd time. Because you're an idiot not to. If you don't get if you don't get someone who always makes it to the end out early, you're an idiot. So Russell went out early the 3rd time, but his first 2 times made it to the end. Brilliant, evil gameplay. He was he epitomizes villain.
Yeah.
And he could never answer those questions. Everyone was, and that's the thing. Whereas Sarah, I don't think she was a villain, but they try to make her out like a villain. But she could back it up and say this is what it was. Whereas Russell Hands was like, no, this is how I play my game. Deal with it.
And I think the difference there is that, like you said, Russell's like, that's how I played. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Sarah was like, that's how I played, but that's how I played because I had to. I actually like you people.
Yeah.
And she actually brought the human side in at the tribal council, and that, I think, is what got her across the line.
Yeah. It's like, I just did what I had to do. It's like, you would have done, like, that's the thing.
Interestingly enough, at the final tribal, one of Brad's supporters was Hayley. She was actually pro Brad, and she came out and said, "Oh no, I'm going to be, I'm a cheerleader for," or didn't say cheerleader, but I'm going to cheer for Brad." And I was stunned because, like, she was on Brad's tribe. She was on the outer the whole time, right? Brad didn't offer her an olive branch at all. Yeah. Then when they went to merge, she was like, I think the first vote. Aussie was the second, right, after merge. It was sort of Brad's. But I was stunned because, Hayley, if anybody on that council
should not like
anybody. Hayley should not like Brad.
That's the thing. I think there are a couple people there. Like, and Zeke is the one who, like we said,
Zeke was fantastic.
We said that last week that the one who's going to make sure it's about gameplay was always going to be Zeke.
Exactly.
And he came out and he did that straight off the bat. He's like, this was a game Sarah deserves to win because she played the best game.
She played like a master.
Forget about being hurt for being voted out by her. Sarah played the best game.
And Zeke was terrific. He said, I was so happy when he said what he said because it set the tone for the council, I think. But we need more players like that. I was a little disappointed with Andrew. I thought Andrew would be more game focused.
So would I. Like, that was actually, I did want, because you're Andrea Love.
No, I'm not Andrea Love. I just appreciate her as a player.
You appreciate her as a player. And the fact that I did not appreciate her as a jury member because she got outdone and she took it so personally.
She was on it so personally. But
she had tears.
Well, I think
she was like, "Oh, really upset she got voted out." But if the reverse was around, she'd be in the exact same position as Sarah, being the one calling the shots and upsetting people.
But look, I liked what Ozzy said. Ozzy came out and said what he said about Brad. I was really impressed because it's great to. Funny thing is, when you see him in the episodes, he doesn't really say much. Yeah. But when he does speak, he's actually got a brain.
I love Ozzy.
Yeah, what he said about Brad, about the way Brad played and everything, I thought was terrific.
Yeah, he gave the better argument for Debbie's.
Actually, I think Ozzy actually gave Brad like
a chance.
He argued better than Brad himself argued.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Ozzy said it. He's like, "Welcome to the club," basically. I have made it to the end on immunities, just like you have. Yeah. And it's hard because they want to vote you out.
Yeah.
You've got to survive, and you did that. And I'm voting for you because you are me. That's his sort of gameplay.
He appreciates and respects
because he's been there when he's played one of the. I think the first season he played where he won the 5. Yeah. Like he's won the and he's been there 121 days.
128.
128.
But the only other person, Sari, is close to 121.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, that's 4 months. That's a lot of time. But anyway, look, Debbie surprisingly was a big Brad rap.
But actually, and surprisingly, didn't give anything ridiculous.
No,
she didn't say anything. No. And that's the thing with Debbie. Debbie can actually say some. Oh, she's not a crazy girl.
Not a complete kook.
Yeah, but yeah, it was surprising that. She was all about Brad when you flip back, and she's like, "You broke my heart."
Yeah, broke my heart. Remember that, Yeah. But here she was, like, "No, I'm a big rap for you, Brad. I'm also a cheerleader for you,
Yeah. Like, I'm around a lot of guys with testosterone. Yeah. I get you.
I get you. I've been in the army. All that. The army came out again.
Standard Debbie.
I think the previous format where you get to ask one question.
Yeah.
Like as a tribal member, I get to stand up there and I ask my one question, and then they each get to answer it. or you know, sorry, I get to direct it to someone.
Yeah, to all of them,
or to all of them, or whatever. But then they get to answer it in their own time, and they don't have other jury members jumping on them when they're answering. You know, and that's what I think was the strength of that format. Was like, okay, my question to you, Brad, is tell me how your social game developed with it. Brad then gets an opportunity to answer. He actually gets to speak uninterrupted by any other jury member or anyone. You know, and I think that's the strength of that format, is you actually get to hear from the final three clearly exactly what their case is.
Yeah, and I also think you also get a jury member each to have their own actual question. Whereas I felt like, you know, in this tribal, as much as I did enjoy the free-flowing nature, I felt most of them almost said nothing to some degrees. Like,
look at Zeke. Zeke made a statement, but he didn't really ask any questions.
He said, this is why we should vote for this person. There was a bit of chatter.
Yeah.
And same with Aussie, same sort of thing.
Exactly.
We should vote for Brad because of this. And Debbie goes, here, I agree.
Yeah. I don't mind that, but I'd
still like everyone to have a single question.
A single question. And because, like you said, there was a lot of people there we didn't actually get a question from. We
didn't get much from. I think Hayley was near the end and said, her thing was kind of really insignificant when she said, I think this, Brad's cool.
I think they have to look at that format again. And
it's got potential. It's got a lot of potential. I just felt
But I think they're going to have to mix it up a bit. Like, maybe have the one question from each jury member at the beginning, and then a free-for-all for 2 minutes at the end or something. Yeah. You know, or something like that. I don't know.
Or kind of like, right, so start with you. Zed, what do you got to say? Got this question? No, cool, move on to the next.
That would be good, you know.
But give everyone their individual moment to say something and then discuss that.
Yes.
Let them discuss, let everyone discuss.
That's right.
And then wrap it with a more heartier conclusion.
I think why I like... Actually, now I think I've narrowed down why I like the previous format. When each contestant has to ask a question, like each jury member, it makes you think about the game. You actually have to put some effort in, right? Whereas with the free-for-all, you can sort of just sit back and go, I don't really have any questions.
And I also think with the because I think I've always wanted, I've got this question for you, and they get the answer, and then I would love the response.
Yeah.
And this time I kind of got all the responses without the question.
Yeah. So, no, I think the previous format had real strengths. I wasn't unhappy with this format, but they need to rejig it a bit more.
Yeah, it was like I wasn't unhappy. I was actually I kind of really enjoyed it, but I just felt lacking. And I'm not sure if I felt lacking because I kind of felt lacking for the whole half after all the idols were played. And it was just like, I loved watching Brad win, don't you know? I loved watching the challenges. That's why I love Survivor, mostly is because those challenges. So that was really cool, but it's still, the tribals became insignificant to me. Then this final tribe... No, they weren't. They were just dead rubbers, you know.
No, I disagree. They were still significant to me. I still enjoyed them.